Welcome to the RePsychled podcast, where we discuss everyday issues from a mental health perspective. We are your hosts, Dr. Rashonda Strickland,
Dr. LaFanya Jones-Hines,
and Dr. Nichelle Wall. Now, don't get it twisted. We're not going to be your stereotypical therapist.
What we will be is informative, down to earth, a little spicy, and vulnerable.
All right, interns, turn up your volume, grab your pen and paper. It's supervision time. As a reminder, this podcast is not meant to take the place of a relationship with a licensed mental health professional.
Welcome back to session 73, Shrink Wrapped with Dr. Leach.
Y'all, so if y'all haven't realized, that's our new segment for when we have guests, Shrink Wrapped. That's what we're calling it. So I know y'all have been enjoying the segments on attachment. So we had to bring in one of our favorite people.
Some like an expert, you know.
I wish we had a soundboard right now. It'd be like, dun, 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 dun.
Play all his favorites.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mary J, you know.
My life, my life, my life, my life.
So we had to bring in one of our favorite people, one of our favorite professors, one of our favorite people to just be around because we love him. He is a native of California, and he received his doctoral degree from, let me say that again, his doctoral degree, because he's an expert, doctoral degree from Rosemead. Okay. Just wanted to make sure I was correct on that, because I remember that from the dome.
See, I was thinking Biola.
Well, Rosemead is the School of Psychology at Biola University.
Okay.
Better
So
know
we-
where you
this
went to
is how
school.
Y'all know we know our favorite person.
There we go.
So because he's so awesome, his bio is uber long. So I'm not going to read everything. I'm just going to tell you the highlights. So as I said, he graduated with his doctoral degree from Rosemead. Then he moved to Dallas, Texas in 2007 and became the professor of Argosy University.
Yes.
It's an invisible school that we all went to.
Yes. Well, that's what we had to bring.
It's okay. The Lord brought us together.
Yes. For good times, times, to be able to get us through the hard times. Yes. So that's where we had the privilege of meeting Dr. Leach. And the thing about Dr. Leach is you could be having a horrible day because you just left class mad because you just, had to take this 200 question quiz.
Yes.
I need you to come back from wherever you're going, because I'm not reliving this with you.
Yes.
Well, see, the thing about Dr. Leach, you could have a horrible day, but then you go into the office where the professors are, because I used to stay in his office. You go in there where the professors are, and he in there singing, dancing, making you laugh. That's just the type of man he is. So, we just enjoyed all of that jovial joy, happiness excitement that he brought to life when we were, struggling in our class.
Yeah. Has a beautiful spirit.
Yes, beautiful spirit. And now he's the founder of Richland Oaks, which is a counseling center. And he also started a university, but I can't find the name of it real quick.
The Texas Institute of Professional Psychology.
Okay.
There you go.
So, as I said, I can keep going, but we got to start the segment. So help us welcome interns, Dr. Michael Leach.
All them things. Yes.
So Dr. Leach, you want to just start off just kind of just talking to the interns and kind of telling them why you're considered to be an expert?
Well, I don't know just how expert, but what I might be is good at teaching.
Okay.
Yes.
I will agree with that.
And when it comes to what we're going to talk about today, attachment, I am certainly not a field expert in that I'm not generating this research. I'm not generating theory, what have you, or protocols, but I am digesting and consuming this literature and trying to translate it,
Yeah.
to make it as accessible and to get people to be excited about what amazing things are coming out of attachment sciences. And I treasure my training at Rosemead. It was very formative and personally transformative, academically transformative, theoretically transformative. And I think they did a great job of training in some regards.
Gotcha.
But I've had incredible privilege to have access to some really incredible folks.
Oh, yeah.
When you grow up in LA and you're in a society that has several tier 1 universities, you've got more Nobel Prize winning scientists in Los Angeles than any other place in the world. Attachment in Los Angeles, it's one of the hubs where attachment science is coming together to present together, to learn from one another. It's certainly, the research is happening all over the world in all different places, but every year folks come to LA.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
It's a hot spot.
It's a hot spot. And so going to graduate school there,
Okay.
sort of take it for granted that you have access to the world's leading researchers. And whether that's you attending their seminars or that's your professors attending their seminars, what have you. It was a great privilege.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how would you describe attachment science to the layperson?
Well, it's a comprehensive and complex set of knowledge that comes from expansive research. And it is the kind of research also that is cutting edge, meaning, let's say 50 years ago, we did not have the kind of technology to ask the kind of questions that we can now ask now.
Yeah.
Most profoundly would be like the functional MRI. Once the functional MRI comes online or comes into the field of sciences, now we get to ask questions that we never got to ask before.
Yeah.
It's taking it to the next level.
That's right. That's right. Which also means that we're going to disagree with ourselves a bit.
Yes.
It means that we're going to...
Not in this field.
Yeah, that's right. Or we're going to alter, or we're going to specify, or change a bit. But attachment is essentially defined in many different ways, and I want to define it in many ways to help illuminate why sometimes there'll be different definitions. It's because we're looking at something different.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so attachment science is much more like an umbrella where you have multiple camps, all sort of having dialogue with one another, but also sort of siloed in their own specificity.
Oh, wow.
Come on, paint the pictures.
Okay.
So you could think about attachment as the neurobiology
Okay.
of interpersonal relationships. So attachment is definitely an inborn brain system. When we're talking about attachment sciences, we're talking about neurology. We're talking about particularly neuropsych, and the psychobiology of interpersonal relationships. What's happening at a neurological level. You can also think about attachment in terms of the relationship between infant and caretaker, typically called mother. Doesn't have to be mother, but historically that's who we had available to examine and research. And often much of that research was with folks that were in poverty. And with poverty comes lots of single mother homes. And so that becomes a very easy thing to study because you don't have an extraneous variable of called a father or so attachment could be thought of as the relationship between caretaker and infant, and particularly interest in what shapes or what affects the infant in their development.
Gotcha.
We can also talk about attachment in terms of romantic relationships. So interpersonal, but which ones specifically? The romantic ones. Or we can talk about attachment in terms of the relationship within oneself.
Gotcha.
So different people in different silos are going to emphasize different aspects of attachment. And I don't want to prize one over the other. I'm particularly rooted in the analytic tradition. So that's where I tend to go toward. And so I tend to go toward the development experience of attachment and focusing on infant development and the intergenerational nature. But that's just one area of focus. Yeah.
So
let me say one more thing. Because then there's also the whole body of literature about assessing attachment strategies.
Yeah.
And when you want to approach it from that camp, then we start using again different language, and we emphasize different things like the classifications, what type of or what strategy or what style of attachment. So then we start getting in our boxes. But that's not always interesting to a lot of people that are in attachment science, because that's not what they're wanting to assess. They want to assess things like emotional regulation, and they want to understand memory systems. And they're not interested in secure attachment versus insecure attachment. So depending on who we're going to talk to and who's going to be asking the question and who's going to be answering the question is going to come different emphasis.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you brought up the topic of infant and single mother.
Yeah.
So can a child that's reared in a single parent home still develop a secure attachment?
Oh, absolutely. Attachment, as it develops in the infant, is, well, let me say, parenting is one of the hardest things in the whole wide world.
It is.
And I like to tell folks that parenting is really just a series of failures that is peppered with some successes.
That's a good way.
He said
to
peppered.
explain it.
Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Because people think it's the opposite.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So much so that the kind of parenting, the kind of parental caretaking experiences between infant and caretaker that lead to the security of attachment in the infant. The frequency of that positive or healthy or secure kind of parenting occurs about 30% of the time. Which means 70% of the time, it's a hot mess.
Yeah.
Because children are here to ruin your lives, and destroy. And
Sorry, Mom.
Sorry, not sorry.
I mean, they're a little parasitic, you know.
Yeah. So I want to emphasize that it's not really about a 1 or 2 parent home. Coming from the lived experience of having kids, a 2-parent home is a sorely under-resourced home.
Gotcha.
It takes more than 2 parents. Kids do not need 2 parents.
Okay.
They need a village.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I get out of the whether it's controversial, whether it's riddled by white supremacy, whether it's riddled by privileges, getting out of the dialogue about a single parent versus intact home. I work with a lot of intact homes.
Language.
That's right. It's loaded language, and it's not really vetted out in the science.
No.
And in fact, some of the science of attachment is rooted in East African anthropology, where we see that there is really no such thing as a mother.
Gotcha.
Wow.
There's just a community of mothers that surround an infant.
Yeah. Everybody helping.
Everybody.
Yeah.
A 2-parent home is an insufficient home to raise a secure child.
I think you just made a very interesting point there.
Yes.
Let me
that's
pull
why-
my notes out.
That's
See,
why I said-
interns, that's why we say you got to take notes.
Okay, because this ain't a Psych 101 lesson today, y'all.
Nah.
This is a Psych 102 lesson.
Yes.
So that's why I reject the question, if you will. It's a false question that is riddled and what did you say? Contaminated. The question is a Trojan horse. There's a bunch of things hiding in that question. Can an infant grow to have a secure attachment in a single parent home? No.
But not even
Because
a
it's
2-parent home.
already
But-
insufficient to provide the needs
Yeah.
based off all the different types of attachment that you were just describing earlier. The neurobiological piece,
in
the
terms
social
of the
piece.
complexity of human beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of the complexity of what it means to grow.
Yeah.
Infants don't need one adult.
Yeah.
they need a society.
Ooh. Man, that's a slap in the face.
Okay. Talk about no child left behind, huh?
Okay.
We're all left behind.
Yeah.
Wow. So you know what? That brings me back to, you know, in the old days when we were growing up, it was like, well, not the old days because I'm still young and beautiful, but in the younger days, when they would say, you know, if you go over to your best friend's house and you start acting up, you got my permission to whoop her butt.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
Because it was the village.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And that principle has not changed, and it is cross-cultural and it's cross-millennial.
Yeah.
Right. Like through the millennium.
Yeah.
We have raised ourselves in communities.
Yeah.
And that's what it means to be social creatures like we are, and what distinguishes us from other mammals.
Wow.
We Homo sapiens sapiens are, which is like the little biology right?
Yeah.
That distinguishes us from, let's say, chimpanzees,
Right.
which are Homo sapiens of a different kind.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We are the Homo sapiens sapiens that can be aware that we are Homo sapiens,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
the second sapien.
Mm-hmm.
And with that awareness comes community, that we are no longer needing to fight for our individual survival, but we collectively fight for our survival.
Yeah. Do you feel as we journey towards a more individualistic society instead of communitivistic, do you feel like that is more causing the shift into insecure attachments?
Yeah, so I think I might, I don't know if we are moving toward a more individualistic. I know for me in my house,
We will serve the Lord.
absolutely, can I get an amen? And we are moving toward more community.
Yeah.
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 So, and in terms of the folks that I tend to try and associate with,
Yeah.
said company
Yes.
is not trying to do
No,
something.
we're trying to get closer.
That's right.
Yeah.
And bringing others in. And so I don't know if we are, but certainly we have some vulnerabilities like social media.
Yeah.
And
That's
media
what I
in
was
general.
thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Does not necessarily incentivize or encourage. I'm not anti-social media in any way, but I can just acknowledge that
Yeah.
it is
for
not
sure.
necessarily cultivating, even if it has the potential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can still reward non-collaborative behavior and individualistic
Yeah.
kind of.
Okay.
And it was making me, when you were talking about, because when you asked your question, it made me think about social media and, you know, just kind of staying on the secure versus insecure attachment style, so that a person that in their childhood, based off, you know, their associations, would have had a secure attachment, but with the social media era and kind of the way the world operates now, can it start to foster insecure attachment within self, versus, even though I would have had it in my, you know, external relationships, but because of the way social media operates, it's now fostering an internal insecure attachment.
Yeah. So that's a good question and requires probably a very long answer.
Gotcha.
Right? Which I want to attack a little bit.
Okay.
The security of attachment that gets laid down neurologically in the infant happens from highly responsive, highly attentive, highly effective parenting. Not 100% of the time.
80-20 rule.
Not even an 80-20 rule, right? I mean, it's like 30-70, right? Like,
Okay.
Oh, no.
that's batting averages.
Oh,
Oh,
A
wow.
really good batter in baseball is at 300.
okay.
So it's not about perfection when we say highly responsive, highly attentive, and highly attuned.
Okay.
But it is those qualities across time. And when you fail at that, because you're going to fail at it, we respond with the repair of it by some more attentive, attuned, responsive parenting.
Gotcha.
So this kind of attachment, these set of experiences that shape how the infant's neurology at a foundational level gets formed, serves, in general speaking, like an inoculation, like a vaccination so that as the infant goes through toddlerhood, through childhood, through adolescence, through adulthood, young, middle, late adulthood, if that individual experiences difficult things, a massive car accident, parents dying, scary traumatic events like 9/11, neighborhood deaths, whatever it is, that individual is going to struggle. I mean, it's going to take some time to adjust to a very difficult situation.
Of course.
The data, though, does vet out that if they had that security of attachment, if given the right conditions, their propensity to get back, to get restored, to return to a level of high effective functioning seems to be determined by that earliest security of attachment.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So what you're asking, it's a good question, but let's look at the question, which is you're asking a question of a particular time in a person's life.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay.
And attachment is about the lifespan.
Makes sense.
In fact, attachment is actually about society, because attachment is about the previous generations and the future generations. And what distinguishes attachment sciences from many other sciences is that we have these longitudinal studies. This is not evidence-based interventions, because evidence-based interventions are based on 6 months? And we're talking, we've studied people before they were born. When it comes to the science of attachment,
it's deep in.
we were studying before they were conceived, what was the environment of their parents, and then have assessed their grandchildren. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
That's how long we've been able to. That's what attachment science brings out of scientists, is that they want to follow people and comprehensively. Yes.
Yeah.
And so your question was, can social media undermine someone's security of attachment? Theoretically, no.
Gotcha.
But that doesn't mean that the individual may not be struggling,
Gotcha.
may not be engaging in compulsive behavior or pathological behavior or be suffering a psychiatric condition.
Gotcha.
Because you're asking about a moment in time. And attachment is the long game. It is the intergenerational game.
It reminds me of what we were talking about, how we've been here since the beginning. Because somebody's eggs was here, and so the egg of the egg of the egg of the egg is me. You know what I mean?
Yes. That's right. Yeah, in Lakota spirituality in particular, you have 7 generations, but you find it in many indigenous theologies or cosmologies, right? So that what you do in this generation is going to affect the next 7 generations.
Absolutely.
So these aren't exactly new concepts.
No.
But the way in which reductionistic and Western science has evolved, it has tended to pose that question. Right, rather than encourage us to ask
broader,
larger, African kind of questions.
Gotcha.
If I can say so.
Yes, you can. Because I think we've talked about this before on some of the research kind of coming out now about we know kind of your thought on trauma, but about generational trauma and how that is passed down in our DNA. So I think that's a good explanation of where that science is coming from. In that, the sins of the father,
are passed down. So the way I think we within attachment sciences are going to say is that it's intergenerational attachment, or we would just say is attachment, because that's what attachment is. It is inherently an intergenerational thing.
Right.
And when there is an insecurity of attachment from the foundational neurological laying down of that infant brain, it leaves the child infant, child, adolescent, adult, rather vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's not destiny
No.
by any means, and attachment can change, including from secure attachment to insecure attachment.
That was ready to be my next question.
Yeah, right. These things are possible.
Yeah.
It's just that it doesn't typically happen, right? So we might want to bring an individual question about an individual.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, that makes sense.
But not like system.
That's right, but that's not how it works,
Okay.
if you will.
I need to go back to school with Dr. Leach. Like, I feel like I'm not doing enough CEUs.
It's in his blood.
I
He's
know.
a teacher at heart.
I felt like this when it was Eros. I was like,
I know.
can I go sit on the men's sec? No, let me just stay in my lane.
Yes. This is good.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh man. Okay. So, what
So
we gonna-
attachment is
okay.
flexible,
Yeah.
Okay.
but not that flexible. And part of the reason why it's not that flexible is that we resist its flexible capacity, or we participate, conscious or otherwise. Right, so it's sad, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not fair. There's an
Yeah.
element that attachment highlights the unfairness of the world.
Yeah.
Why do rich people get to take out loans, right? Borrow money
Yeah.
at 0% interest. The people that need to borrow money at 0% interest
Get 45%
get
or 799%
Yeah.
like payday loans.
Yeah.
like never.
Yeah.
And attachment can be a little bit like that.
Yeah.
Because you become victimized by your own victimization, and then you participate in your own victimization, and then
Okay,
you
spiral.
perpetuate it. What
Oh,
some
man.
may call intergenerational trauma.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so how do we want to talk about it?
Yeah.
And at what level do we want to intervene? Do we want to intervene at the trauma level?
Yeah.
Or do we want to intervene at an attachment level? And what can we do?
Yeah. It seems like we need to do it at all levels.
Well,
Yeah.
that's right. Exactly. And so I don't want to prize one over the other.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
If what you have is 10 sessions
Yeah.
or what you have is very limited capacities
Yes.
Yeah.
in a patient.
I think that's the biggest thing. If you're in direct care, like
Yes.
outpatient therapy is helping a person understand that capacity. In the past, I worked with an individual that, you would probably categorize as like chronically depressed,
Yeah.
and helping this individual understand this is your baseline, and, your vision for wanting to be whatever you've designed in your head as a happy, quote unquote, person. Are you aiming for something that is not realistic for you?
Yeah.
And having the capacity to understand that this is your functioning level. It doesn't matter how many meds you take. It doesn't matter how many coping skills I teach you.
Yep.
That this is your functional level. So let's learn to manage within that functional level, and really struggling with the idea of, well, no, I should be XYZ place. But do you have the capacity to really obtain that though?
And another adjacent question is, do we?
Yes.
Does society have the capacity?
My gut says.
I know that was
My
a
gut
rhetorical
says.
kind of question, right?
Like,
But
I have an answer.
what I mean to highlight there is, again, whether we're talking about an infant or an adult struggling, it takes a village.
Yeah.
It takes
Definitely.
systems,
Yeah.
and attachment keeps vetting that out, so that it is inappropriate to expect this individual therapist
Yeah.
and this individual patient
That
to
is
get
true.
as well as we would all like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because it's complicated,
Very.
right? It's the soul is deep.
Yeah. That's why one of the things that I ask when I do an assessment is, what does your support group, your support system look like?
Absolutely.
Because I'm not doing this by myself. Like,
I can't.
I need some help. You know, and
Yes.
you need to feel supported. You know, it is a long road to healthiness, depending
Yes.
on what's on your plate.
Yes.
Yeah.
All of you know my specialty area is addiction and family
Yes.
members of addiction.
Mm-hmm.
It's because I work with both, it's hard for me to make sure, you know, the family stop enabling the addict, but then it's all, they also need the support. So it has to be a fine balance between making sure you're still there to support, but when they're healthy and when they understand their capacity to be healthy. And that's a hard line to walk.
Yep.
Because sometimes you don't know when their capacity is like, nope, my capacity is to drink. My capability is to find my drink, my drug of choice, so I can cope.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I'm capable of doing.
Yeah, one of the ways, whether they're addicts or non-addicts, but with attachment disturbances, we're often asking them to imagine something that they don't have the capacity to imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so it doesn't matter that y'all are perfect therapists like I know you are.
Of course.
Of course, thank you.
That's right.
I mean, I wish.
You can give someone something beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
but it can be unfathomable
Yeah.
and nonsensical.
Yeah.
That's the insidiousness of the insecurity of attachment, is that
Yeah.
you just gave them something beautiful, but because it makes no sense,
Oh yeah.
it has to just be dismissed.
Yeah, they're not there yet. Someone that I know uses percentages, and when they talk about your capacity to love, and so if
Yeah.
you are in a relationship and your capacity to love is 70%, and I'm not saying you have to be at 100 or anything
Right.
like that, but if your capacity is 70%, but you're with somebody that's 30%, you have an overabundance of love that this person is not going to be able to receive because they don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to them.
That's right. They are lactose intolerant. They got a nut allergy.
Hey, yes.
They can't digest it
No.
and then metabolize it.
Right.
Right? Make it become them.
Yes.
All they can do is pass it out.
Yes. All over the place.
Yes. Right. And they got there honestly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't need to be any judgment in it. And I think that's the thing.
Absolutely.
Like, there has to be an awareness of, like, let me just look at what's happening in this situation and not pass judgment. Because
Yes.
you have to, in a relationship, you want to be matching yourself up with someone who works for you and you are different every day. And I think a lot of people kind of lose that in their relationships. They're like, you need to be how I've envisioned you. And that's not their walk. That was what you made up sometimes as a child.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. That image that you have in your head is hard to replace.
Oh yeah.
You never lie.
Well, and we talk a lot about that, about what voices in your head, and you know, whose messages are you listening to. I think that kind of speaks to a lot of about attachment. You know, what we've
Yes.
learned and associated with just insert whatever descriptors: success,
Right.
value,
Right.
worth. You know, all
Yeah.
of those things. That if it's my mom and my mom was, you know, critical and exploitive, whatever, you know, then I'm going to view the world from that lens and enter into my relationships either suspiciously or
Frighteningly.
yes,
Yeah.
or I'm going to be the excessive one, you know, I'm going to be the 70 but attracting a bunch of 30s,
Yeah.
you know, stuff like that.
And not understanding why things don't work out.
Why people don't love me?
Yeah.
Because you're picking wrong.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then, you know what? We do have some people who they have people who gravitate to them a lot, and they don't understand why do these people keep wanting to be in a relationship with me, or you know, things like
Yeah.
that. So you have the opposite side too.
True.
Which is the same thing. Coins have two sides.
And they
Oh,
have
yeah.
edges too.
Yes. Yeah, that infancy attachment experiences teaches you. We learn how relationships work.
Yeah.
We learn what to expect from them,
Yeah.
and we learn what not to expect from them. And sometimes we learn that certain things don't even exist without being aware that they exist.
Yeah.
Right.
Like we're not aware that loving relationships are possible.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a level that requires some security of attachment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's what makes it so insidious,
Oh yeah,
right? You don't know what you don't know.
and that's the scary part.
That's right. And so on some level, I find attachment sciences to be wonderfully forgiving for the mess of our lives.
Oh wow.
It is a grace-based, drenched theory that really lays out wherever you are, it makes sense.
Yeah. This is how you got there.
This is how you got there.
Yeah,
And you didn't get there alone. Because if you got there alone, you were already dead.
Oh wow.
We know that from our orphan studies.
yes.
Right?
is
That
true.
if you don't pick up a child, if you don't interact with a child, they'll just die.
I was just about to ask
The
you that.
rhesus
What were
monkey
your
one too.
I was just about to
That's
say,
right.
what
Yeah.
are your thoughts on, parents who force the self-soothing or the crying in the crib thing?
Yes.
Because that is definitely working on some attachment stuff.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. It gets super complicated because part of the so.
He has a lot of thoughts, y'all.
They're running. They're running.
Here goes.
Exactly what just happened. Yeah, not that one. Not that one. So, what your question sparked in me, in a way that hasn't yet, sort of surprisingly, but what I want to know is who is listening to my answer.
Ooh.
Oh.
I would like to know my audience because if I'm speaking to a parent who's particularly anxiously and ambivalently attached,
Yes.
and I say something like,
Yes.
highly responsive parenting would not let a child cry it out and quote self-soothe, then that anxiously attached system,
Yes.
without their awareness,
Becomes a
Yes.
helicopter parent.
becomes an validated, they're engrossed, boundary crossing.
Yeah, you can't blanket statement it because you don't know
I
what
don't know.
their level of functioning is in this particular area.
Whether we're going to call it level of functioning or from an attachment
Yes.
perspective, what is their attachment style,
Yes,
strategy,
yes.
classification, right? Like, I don't know who's going to be listening to this
Yeah.
and how they're
That
going to
is
take
true.
it.
That
And
is
they're
true.
going to take it the way they take it by honest means,
Yeah.
right? Like, they got there honestly
Yeah.
to distort what I just said.
Yes. Makes sense.
It happens all the time in sessions.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
But that is not
That-
what I said.
At all.
And all.
That's when you say, "What did you hear me say?"
Uh-huh.
Can you repeat back what you heard me say? Because I didn't say that.
No, but that makes
Yeah,
sense.
that makes
Yeah,
sense.
makes
It
a lot of
definitely does.
Mm.
Because you want to give it from a perspective of facts and not opinion, and you want to also make sure that you're not further hindering their parenting process that they're going through.
Absolutely.
So it has to be individualized.
And on that note, another way of also saying it is, I want my answer to be highly responsive to the questioner.
Yes.
I want to respond to what the patient adult parent needs,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Definitely.
right?
So-
because that's the essence of secure
Exactly.
parenting or secure relationship.
Yeah. Prime example. If my mom, and I can say this because she's told me stories, my mom has always told me I've been a calm baby.
Yes.
Like I came out the womb chilling.
Yes.
So there was no, she had to allow me to self-soothe. I was just like, okay, how you
That's
doing?
right. That's right.
Versus my younger brother, he's not like that. He's like, no, where are you at?
That's right.
Come pick me up.
Yes.
And so we're two different kids.
That's
and
right.
obviously my mom was two different parents because we're 10 years apart. So it really does have to be individualized.
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. So that highlights the complexity of attachment because we're also talking about temperament
Yes.
that is so hardwired in a biological before there is much of a
Yeah.
external relationship. There's
Yes.
an internal relationship in the womb for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we call you an easy baby.
And she has said that.
Yes, right? And that usually just means you didn't make a lot of demands
I was
on
just
me.
chilling.
Yeah, but your capacity to or your propensity to not get overstimulated in your neurosystem.
And that is true till today.
Yes.
It is. Y'all be calling me out on the air now.
And where it gets wonderfully complex is how that then pulls a kind of mother out.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because there are some kind
it goes
of
back
mothers.
and forth.
That's right. Because attachment is dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
It's fluid. So for some mothers, they cannot stand the easy baby.
They don't have purpose.
Whoa.
Or love.
Like
That too.
when I'm the emoji with the like explosion head.
Yeah, I know.
That's right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It
Yeah.
does.
And
It
by
does.
purpose, we just meant defined in a specific way.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
You need me in a specific kind of way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not that you have an easy temperament
Mm.
per se,
Mm-mm.
because we can see that certain people,
Yeah.
that's distressing.
Yes.
Mhm.
Makes sense.
Wow.
Whereas if it was your brother and there's a different kind of mother,
Yes.
they're like, this is the best thing that ever happened because you need me.
Yeah.
And now we can sleep in the bed together till we're
Yes.
14. And it's like, oh, Lord. Like, what's...
Please take him out.
yes.
Yeah. And I
By
mean, it's,
him, I mean you.
Yes.
yes. And even to take it a step further, it even affected like how we responded to illness.
That's right.
Like I got the measles, the mumps, chicken pox,
Yes.
all these types of things, and I was good.
Yeah.
My brother almost died every other month
Yes.
You know what I mean?
From
Wow.
scratch.
from scratch.
Or
Breathing
boy flu.
problems,
Mm.
nut allergy.
Yeah.
You know, so it
Yeah.
was different, and of course there's some other things that probably were going on, you know, the environment that he grew in and different things like
Yes.
that, whether she was stressed, different
That's
things of
right.
that nature.
That's right.
But it's interesting just how all that comes together to create your earth side beginnings of your attachment.
Yes.
You know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
And that's what we mean by highly responsive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We don't mean rushing in
No. Not quick. It's not about being quick.
necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that kid needs it quick, then you
Well,
gotta
yes,
be quick.
yes.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But this kid didn't need quick.
No, it bothers my
That's
spirit.
right. And so that's what highly responsive means is to the specific and individual unique
Yes.
needs in that moment
For that person.
for that person.
Yeah.
And like I said, parenting is a series of failures
It is not easy.
Ooh.
peppered with some successes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you
And
knocked some
some-
heads off with that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure we probably have several of the interns out there that are like, oh,
This makes so much sense now.
I know. I
Mhm.
know. It's like, oh, I don't have to be a perfect parent.
Yeah, because I talk with some individuals about parenting from a place of guilt or parenting
Yes.
from a place of fear,
Yes.
and how that shadows how you interact with your children because you're parenting from this place that is going to be overprotective or underprotective.
Mhm. Yeah.
There's
Or
so
obligation.
because you're not leading with clear eyes, for example, and that's going to likely be based off a lot of different experiences as an individual, experiences as a parent, that really kind of shape how you deal with your child or really deal with other people. But since we're talking about parent-child
Yep.
relationships, how you deal with your child. And then, as we've already said, that continues on. And then now I'm interacting in the world and I'm walking through like, oh, well, my mama parented me from fear, so maybe I should be afraid of things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life is,
If there's a relationship that doesn't have fear in it, it doesn't make sense to me. It's not
Yeah.
a relationship, so why would I engage in it?
right.
I'm only going to seek out relationships that evoke or provoke degrees of fear.
Yeah.
Because that's how relationships work.
Yeah.
Come on, trauma bond.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Because you can be trauma bonded with your parent.
Clearly.
Indeed.
Yeah.
What did you say? Oh, yeah, shadow. Overshadows,
Yes.
which is a lovely sort of a visual of a parent, with the sun behind them, casting this shadow.
Oh, yeah.
I want to even double down on it
Okay.
And if you're parenting from those places of fear, you're also you're putting the fear into your child.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like it's I wish it was just shadow.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
but it's more like the shadow, where the hands are coming.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
It's a little Freddy Cougar.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so what an infant needs is when they're stimulated, whatever the stimulation is, to have a responsive parent able to return them back to homeostasis
Yeah.
across time.
Mm-hmm.
But if the parent is already starting at a level of agitation,
Yeah.
overstimulation, or its opposite, understimulation
Yeah.
and availability,
Yeah.
then that infant can't get comforted.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
So-
what these temperaments do sometimes
He's pointing to Dr. Wall.
Give it to me.
is allows for some parents
Mm-hmm.
to get by
Mm-hmm.
despite their inadequate parenting.
That is
Oh,
correct.
wow.
Right? So see where it gets real complicated?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
That certain temperaments,
Yes.
I am horrible at soothing you. But it didn't really matter because you're so
Soothe.
already in a
Yeah.
middle range.
Mm-hmm.
See,
But then
Dr. Strickland and Dr. Jones Hahn knows my recent cancer story, and there is a story in there specifically about one of my parents
Mm-hmm.
where this went on.
Yeah.
So
yes.
yeah, Ugh. It is very
Yes,
true.
exhale, right?
Yeah.
But then when another sibling comes along,
Mm-hmm.
we see how there can be some differences
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
where certain temperaments reveal
Mm-hmm.
compromised
Mm-hmm.
attachment in
Mhm.
parenting. Does that make
Definitely.
sense? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it's very
Absolutely.
complex,
Yeah.
but we want to speak in these broad terms so
Yeah.
we can do something with them or
Mm-hmm.
make sense of the world. Yeah.
Well, it makes me wonder about like personality disorders.
Uh-huh.
You were just speaking about either you're an excitable parent, or you're based in fear, or you're an under excited
Yeah,
parent.
unexcitable.
Yeah.
Unarousable.
Exactly.
Hello, I'm right here. Pay
Yeah.
attention to me.
Yes.
Mhm.
And this is before the days of cell phone.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
right. That's right.
that's not a new concept.
Mm-mm.
So it makes me think of like, when you have parents that are either on the extreme ends,
Yes.
and if we talk about personality and how that's developed,
Mhm.
how does that transition and morph into what our field describes as personality disorders, especially for me, more on the wild end. You got wild, weird and wary, but
Mhm.
the wild end, you're narcissistic, you're antisocials, you're borderline,
Yes,
histrionic.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, one of the things about attachment sciences is that they haven't quite mapped so acutely
Mm.
Okay.
to direct diagnosis.
Gotcha.
What they do, what the research does reveal is the association and the predictability
Gotcha.
of insecure
Gotcha.
attachment, especially the disorganized infant-child attachment,
Okay.
tends to predict very well
Mm-hmm.
personality disorders or dissociative disorders
Okay.
Yes.
or
Oh, okay.
multiple addictive behaviors,
Gotcha.
sometimes all three,
Mm-hmm.
let alone other psychiatric
Gotcha.
conditions.
Okay.
But it's mainly, as I know the science, it's mainly disorganized attachment that can be so predictive,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
whereas the other insecure attachment styles are not quite as powerfully predictive.
Gotcha.
Okay.
We do know, though, that they are absolutely suboptimal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
Yes.
we definitely know that the secure attachment is optimal
Right.
Mhm.
across board, whether that's predicting things like the recovery from a psychiatric condition,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
like you got a bout of depression,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
that that security of attachment, I think it was something we were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to recover likely.
Mm-hmm.
Your question was a moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, security of attachment is not going to predict very well whether or not someone does or doesn't get depressed,
Right.
or does or doesn't develop an anxiety disorder,
Okay.
or doesn't develop some personality disorder on some level.
Right.
But it does tend to predict that their capacity to make use of therapy,
Gotcha.
it does predict the recovery.
Makes sense.
Yeah, does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But in terms of personality and personality disorders, one way to think about personality is that it's the accumulation of temperament,
Mm-hmm.
which is biology,
Mm-hmm.
the wiring of the neurology,
Mm-hmm.
attachment across time.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So that the personality is the summation of experiences and other developmental tasks that's resting on the foundation of attachment, which is
Gotcha.
influenced by temperament,
Mm-hmm.
and not the infant's temperament,
Mm-hmm.
but the infant-parent interaction temperament, which we now
Okay.
going to call personality in the parent,
Got you.
but everybody got a temperament,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
right? So,
Yeah.
so personality is the summation
Okay.
across time,
Gotcha. Wow.
yeah, which includes a thing like a sense of self, includes emotional regulation.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
why you keep taking my
I know
words?
you're- That's my flow.
I know.
Uh-huh.
It involves interpersonal relationships.
Yeah.
Personality involves cognitive styles and processes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That might be the summation of a personality.
Gotcha.
That definitely makes sense. It reminds me when we were talking about last month about Ted Bundy.
Oh yeah.
And how
Yeah.
a lot of times when you look at different serial killers and they talk about their personality disorder, they also do a very in-depth study of their family system that they are
Mhm.
currently in, as well as their family of origin,
Yeah.
and all of that, and how that all intermingled together. So
Mhm.
that makes a lot of sense.
Oh yeah.
On
Yeah,
that
so it
note,
does-
let me just give a plug to one of my favorite books,
Mm-hmm.
which throws a wrench
Uh-huh.
into some of these things.
Okay.
Andrew Solomon wrote a book called Far from the Tree.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically chapter after chapter after chapter, thick, 500, 600 pages, basically giving you all these exceptions
Mm-hmm.
and these exceptions
Of course.
and these exceptions. And like he just does not let you find
Yeah.
a simple answer.
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow.
It's delicious
Okay.
because it makes you, it ought to make you surrender to the mystery
Mm-hmm.
and the complexity of
Yeah.
life, and one of so the title of the book, it comes from the saying, the apple does not fall far from the tree,
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Unless
That's
it's on
the
a hill
adage.
and it can roll.
and then sometimes, which is what his book is all about, sometimes it actually did fall
Uh-huh.
far from the tree.
Yeah.
So you may be straight parents that have a gay son.
Uh-huh.
You may be dwarfed parents that have a non-dwarfed child, or
Yeah.
vice versa,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or deaf,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
or some other disability,
Mm-hmm.
or psychopathy.
Mm.
You can have a child that
Mhm.
murders other children
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Because it happens.
because it happens,
Yeah.
despite what all the research might say, adequate functional parenting and environment,
Mm.
i.e. Dylan Klebold
Yeah.
and Columbine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been the mom has been wonderfully transparent
Mm-hmm.
many years later.
Yeah.
But the main person that has interviewed her over the years is Andrew Solomon.
Okay.
And so here's this, we want to just make it a simple,
Yeah.
this happened because bad parents, and now I'm safe because I'm a good parent, and the world is fine.
Yeah.
But that's about the parent instead
right.
of about the kid.
That's right.
Yeah. This makes me think that a good adjunct book to what the one you just talked about is A Man's Search for Meaning.
Oh, sure. Yes.
That's
Viktor
one of
Frankl.
my favorite books.
Absolutely.
That and for those that have never read it, about the Holocaust and still being able to have hope and
Yes.
perseverance in the face of
Yes.
Yeah.
all of these terrible tragedies.
Yeah.
In that it's not as simple as
No, it isn't.
If you just
Yeah.
had good parents, then
Yeah.
you'd be fine.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think that kind of contradicts the school when they say, well, what's wrong with your parents? Where your parents at? Or they flipping in the yard or in the cafeteria. Where your parents at?
Yeah.
Well, that don't have nothing to do with the parents.
Yeah.
Oh, and the book that Dr. Strickland was talking about is by Viktor Frankl. Shout out to the Viktor Frankl Logotherapy Institute, as well as Dr. Barnes, my former professor, because he passed this year. So shout out to them.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Man.
He gave us a lot of meat and vegetables today.
Oh yeah, I feel like I need to go run around the building or something.
Okay.
Were you going to ask a question about emotional regulation, or?
Mm-hmm.
And is it gone?
Yep.
Go out the window.
I can't remember. If I remember, I'll throw it back in there.
Well, while you're thinking about it,
go ahead.
I kind of want to transition to attachment and adulthood.
Yeah.
So we did our paper on adult attachment.
Oh yes.
Because that was something that was very important to me. The interns know that I was a military brat.
Yes.
But I was also interested in how my relationships have formed. Specifically being a third culture kid.
Yes.
But also just kind of things that have happened in the past, and how that has shaped my romantic relationships. So are there differences in the types of insecure attachments that you've seen in adult romantic relationships versus what the science says about your insecure attachments in childhood?
Well, essentially they mirror each other. They share a lot of similar characteristics, but because of the way in which they're going to be expressed in the context, we tend to not see their similarities in the same way. But an example might be if you're a dismissive or avoidant attached child. One way we assess that and observe that is we put that child in a room with their parent, and then we have that parent leave, and the child gets distressed because their caretaker has left, and then we bring the parent back in, and we see how does that child respond or make use of the parent. And then we also sort of do that all over again, and also by introducing a stranger into the situation too.
Right.
And then bring the parent back in, and we observe how does that infant, toddler, child make or doesn't make use of the parent. That dismissive, avoidant child is not going to go make use of the parent for soothing. They're going to tend to avoid the parent. They're going to go be playing in the corner.
Gotcha.
So in adult romantic relationships, we might see that an avoidantly, dismissively attached adult may not even acknowledge or know any sort of need states. They may have difficulty even knowing unto themselves that they're needing soothing.
Oh, I feel seen. Because I'm a dismissive attachment style.
On that,
I've talked about that before, that, like I pre-plan text messages like to my friends and things like that because, it won't cross my mind. Not because I don't love this person and want a relationship with them, but it just...
It does not occur to you.
Yeah.
It does not cross the consciousness. So it's not something that's being blocked out. That's not the subjective experience of someone who's dismissively attached.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you talking about?
But you adapt it to the needs of the people that you love. So you schedule them.
Yes.
Yes, which is your movement towards security of attachment. That's your movement toward earning.
Yeah.
Which we might say there was probably a bit more secure attachment in you in your infancy.
Shout out to Mama
Dad,
Pena.
yes. And then something had happened.
Yeah.
You were born into the military.
Gotcha.
Which is not conducive
Right.
to community, even though you talk to military families, fierce supportive.
Yeah.
And then we just break you apart.
There you go.
And then you have to put it back together
Mm-hmm.
and then break you apart again.
Yeah.
Right? So the illusion is that military families are fierce and supportive, and they are. But there's nothing about those conditions that supports longevity.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what we might wonder about you is that you may have actually been way more securely attached than you realize.
Okay.
And then some adverse childhood experiences, what we might call being in the military.
Mm-hmm.
That is an adversive childhood experience. There is nothing about being upplanted, transplanted, uprooted without your consent, without your input.
Or knowledge.
Sometimes
we're leaving
knowledge.
Like, oh, tomorrow. Oh, gotcha. Okay.
There's nothing about that says these are the qualities of how we want to live as a society.
Yeah.
So you're having adverse experiences of which you're learning and having to adapt to. But your capacity to return to a level of collaborative behaviors,
Gotcha.
your capacity to be aware of your own state of mind and the state of minds of others, your capacity to regulate your feelings, right, might all speak to that there was some foundation.
Gotcha.
That then is layered on top of with some adverse childhood experiences.
Gotcha.
Of which are going to take some adjustment to.
Yes. Yes.
But your capacity to return in the way that you have might indicate more security of attachment in infancy.
Gotcha.
Whereas if you were someone else who didn't have that level of security of attachment in infancy, may not have the capacity to be as aware of your own mind and aware of your own need. You know you need to reach out to people.
Yes.
You know you need
yes.
to communicate to your friends that you love them. The pre-planning, okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's not genuine.
Right.
Yeah.
But some would not be able to get that far.
Gotcha.
And may not be able to finish a doctoral program that was challenging. Doctoral program is already challenging.
Right.
And the particularities of your particular
Yes.
challenges. Of your program, right?
Yes.
The particularities of your particulars.
yes.
So, not that I want to disagree with you.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But this is the sort of illumination of the complexity.
Oh, yeah.
That
I agree.
security of attachment doesn't mean you're going to have an easy life.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Right?
Yeah.
It does, though, sometimes mean that.
Yeah.
Because secure people tend to attract secure people, which then tend to attract secure environments, which then tend to adapt well to challenges. Right?
Yeah.
Like, there is some implications there.
Right.
Well, Dr. Leach, I was going to say that I think I'm dismissive avoidant. But you kind of make me think different. Because, because I had the opposite because I didn't grow up in a military family, but my parents are performers. So they traveled a lot.
Yes.
So even though I didn't go anywhere, they did.
Yes.
And so I do believe maybe I did develop a secure attachment. But when I became an adult, it was nothing for me to pick up and move.
That's right.
Like the only reason why I'm still in Texas is because of Dr. Strickland, Dr. Wall, and my husband and this business.
Yes.
Because otherwise, it would be, if I got hurt, I would move.
Yeah.
And it would be just at the right time. I would get hurt. I graduated from get my BA. I can go to Georgia now. Let's go.
Yeah.
So I would avoid dealing with whatever situation it was by moving. And so that's why I was thinking it was avoidant for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not disagreeing per se.
Oh, yeah. But it's complex.
It is way more complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you
Go
just
ahead,
like you don't need two parents.
Mm-hmm.
What you needed was a village. And one of the difficulties of attachment is you can't remember what it was like being one. You can't remember what it was like being two. So these are not things that you specifically can reflect on
Right.
directly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's possible that you had a community of other caretakers, which we find a lot in certain cultural communities in America,
Yeah.
not often in white communities,
Mm-hmm.
but we find it in certainly certain pockets of black communities,
Yeah.
that there is a play mama,
Mm-hmm.
there are church mamas.
Yes.
It's so funny
Aunties.
because my village they were white people.
Sure,
So they were the ones who took care of me
Sure.
while my parents were
Yeah.
traveling.
sure.
Mm.
So the point being is, was there responsive parenting across time?
Gotcha.
It's not optimal to have your biological parents be so unavailable, literally. It's not optimal.
Yeah.
But the neurology on some level don't really care. It's just, I was hungry.
Yeah.
Did you feed me?
Yeah.
My stomach hurt. Did you soothe me?
Yeah.
I don't want to be bothered. Did you not bother me?
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
And those kind of repeated experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak to the importance of healing those different traumas
Yeah.
and things that come up before you enter into an emotional or sexually intimate
Oh, yeah,
relationship
that
as an
question.
adult?
Well, I remember reading that thought y'all question you guys had, and I remember not liking a kind of prescription of do this before this, in that we're a mess anyways.
Yeah. Definitely.
Do this while this.
That very much is, even though there have been plenty of people that I've sat with, I'm like,
Never do
don't
this.
do this. Don't do this now.
Yeah.
Can we wait 6 months?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't, what I'm trying to sort of check in my own mind is my own capacity to know everything.
Yeah.
Right? We know that attachment is sticky. It tends to follow family lines.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to wait to repair my attachment, I may not
I mean, I get it.
ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So there is this, I sort of wanted to make sure that some sentiment like
Yeah.
that is out there, that this is a long game.
Yeah.
And this is for the next generations just as much as it is about your Friday night.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah? That being said, there does seem enough evidence to suggest we ought to delay certain decisions and take some time to attend to the disruptions of our attachment so that we can process our traumas, so that we can enter more honestly our romantic relationships.
Gotcha. Makes sense. It reminds me of the inner child stuff. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
like
Yeah, say more about that, because that's exactly what this all is.
yeah.
Yes.
It to me it's like we're talking about attachment.
Yeah, let me just say that right now. When we say attachment, you might as well start thinking about your inner child.
Yes.
Because that's what
Exactly.
it is. Because that's where it's from. And
Exactly.
okay, so that's what we mean.
Exactly. And so in my head,
I'm going to say it one more time.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I keep interrupting.
no, you're okay. Come on.
But historically, the inner child was sort of presented, I think, scientifically or in our community or general pop culture as something woo-ish and hippy-dippity, blah, blah, blah. Like, so I like to emphasize
Yes.
what we're talking about is neurology
Yes.
from your infancy.
Yes.
And if you want to call that your inner child, do.
Yes.
Because what it is. And it didn't go anywhere.
No. No.
Right? Like,
You are you.
you are you. We never meant that there is this child inside you.
But that's what people
Like there's
think.
an organ
It's like
inside
a little,
you.
it's a little child sitting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what we mean is self-soothing. How do you, yada, yada, yada. So anyways,
Yeah.
keep going.
But what I was
Before I interrupt
saying
you again.
is I've actually been doing a lot of work with people working on their inner child, because there is this dichotomy between the two, like who I am today and then who I was as a child. And I think what people don't realize, because we do have so many things unhealed and don't know that they're even unhealed, is that your inner child is actually the adult you, and your adult you has not even been born yet, because you're still stuck wherever the trauma happened or wherever the issues happen. So you're growing day by day. Well, most people, unless it's some serious stuff going on, are growing day by day, but we are wearing our wounds on the outside, and they haven't, like we've talked about in the past, they haven't actually turned into a scar or scabbed over. They're still oozing.
Development is one of those strange things in that there's no stopping it.
No.
Right? There's no stopping the body developing.
When you die.
Right, exactly. So there's this tension of development just keeps building on itself. Compounds. And so when the inner child was harmed, on some level, like just speaking biologically, development didn't stop, right? It keeps going. And so that adult is defined by the nature of that inner child, which is why the adult doesn't really look like an adult.
Oh yeah.
Right? That's
impulsive responding. And
yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's why you're not your adult self yet, I think is what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Even though they are an adult, because they can do adult things.
Yes.
But it's just their adultness is defined by their inner childness.
Great example. We've been talking about the whole self-soothing debate. Like, you can tell when people get angry or when something doesn't go their way, you can see a whole bunch of adults still do not know how to self-regulate or self-soothe themselves. And it's like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing today.
Yes.
Oh, those tantrums are real.
Self-soothing is also such a misnomer on some level, right? Because to self-soothe was to other soothe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So what's the self? What's the nature of that self that's going to engage in the soothing? Or what's the relationship of that self that's going to engage? Oh, you look alone. Right? You're not employing anybody to help you hang on to yourself. Or, my goodness, are you demanding everybody engage in your self-soothing? Because that's not self-soothing either, right? Because there's people that are not available, some people that are not interested, and some people that's none of their business. Or if you ask them, these people, they're actually going to do you more harm if you ask them to help self-soothe you, right? That's an anxiously entangled kind of way of self-soothing, as opposed to the tantrum all by themselves is a very dismissive or alone.
That's one of the things that I've been telling people lately is like, you know, as infants, we had to learn how to self-soothe at some point in our infancy, toddlerhood, whatever.
Yes, in our infancy, we had to grow the capacity to soothe.
Exactly.
Said another way.
Grow the capacity. Okay, gotcha. I'm using that.
Yes.
Quoted Dr. Leach.
Because I want to get away from the selfness.
Okay. Okay. I gotcha.
Not that I don't want to hold people responsible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but if I don't have the capacity, I don't have the capacity. I can't be held responsible for not having that capacity because the capacity was dependent on other people in my infancy.
It wasn't given to me.
And
it wasn't given to me.
Yes.
It was my birthright.
And see, that's what I tell the adults now. That like when we had to learn that in infancy, but it doesn't change. We still have to learn how to have the capacity to be able to deal with whatever said situation is going on without having tantrums, without having rages, you know, things of that. And we have to learn how to soothe
or self injury.
Yes.
Attachment is kind of like a dowry. You know what I mean? It's got a whole bunch of stuff in it.
Yes.
And some of it you don't need, but it's all there because it's yours.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of my takeaway. Like that's my visual that's popping up in my head.
I like it.
Yeah, and consent wasn't necessary
at all.
It's attachment is a non-consensual phenomenon.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so guilt can't be in the mix.
And that's something I talk with I have talked with clients that have had trauma history, is using your adult brain to hold the child accountable to what you would do today.
Yeah.
When they did not have the capacity to think the way that you have to think today. So holding a 7-year-old responsible for, well, I should have said no, or I should have done this. A 7-year-old does not think like a 40-year-old.
No.
They don't have can't even begin to have the understanding, outside of like not even genius children,
Oh.
Yeah.
They just don't have the experience. They don't have the understanding to make those types of abstract,
complicated, nuanced,
yes,
time specific
decisions.
Yeah. I think sometimes guilt is a deflection that like keeps us stuck in the problem that we're trying to solve.
Okay.
Like we get distracted by it.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
Because we talk about the whole spiral thing and being able to spiral in any given emotion instead of feeling it, understanding it, and processing and all of that. So I feel like sometimes in sessions, especially here recently, people not doing good in the panini press.
Right.
Folks in this guilt right now, they are really struggling with, I should be doing this and I'm not where I need to be in these things. And it is a distraction from being able to move forward and being able to be solution focused.
And that's one of the things that I tell my clients. I was like, y'all not using guilt right. Guilt is not supposed to make you stuck in whatever situation. It's supposed to push you forward to do something different.
Guilt is a lazy form of grief.
Let me write that too.
Oh.
Guilt is a lazy form of grief.
Can
Tell
you
me
expound
more
on that?
Yeah, I was going to say, Dr. Michael Leach, circa 2021.
I don't think it's originally my idea either. But
Well, we don't know where it came
me
from.
either. Yeah. So not only does guilt distract, guilt is a way of saying, I don't need you.
Dr. Lee, we got notes like we in
said,
class.
take me to church.
I mean, okay. If you need to charge me for these CEUs that I can send to the board, let me know.
Guilt functions in a way of saying, I do not need the cross with a crucified Jesus. Scoot over, Jesus. Let me pay for it.
Ooh.
Oh.
So guilt is not love.
Yeah.
Guilt is not relational.
Right.
Guilt is saying, I don't need you. And it's based in grief for the fact that I needed you and you weren't there.
Oh, wow. It's the concept of, I hate you, don't leave me.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
That keeps somebody stuck in the I hate you, but then I need you, come back. And in this case, it can be rather self-directed. I hate me, but I'm going to tend to me so well in my hatred
Yeah.
that I'm stuck.
Wow. I've never heard it put that way.
Me neither.
Guilt is narcissism.
Shut up.
Go back to listen to those series.
Last month.
Guilt is a form of narcissism that says, I can do this on my own.
Watch me. I see what you're saying. Watch me, carry this.
That's right.
Oh, it's a badge of honor.
He out here busting y'all upside y'all heads, interns.
We're going to have
And
a lot
us
of
in here
comments
too.
on this.
Oh, yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Attachment is always about usness.
Mm-hmm.
Attachment is really we-ness,
Yeah.
right? So we don't really, it makes no sense outside of a context of relationships.
Yeah. Everything is we. Shout out to somebody else's podcast, but
Yes.
everything is we.
Absolutely, everything is we. Guilt is the inability to say, I need you. I need something.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well, I know I'm not gonna be feeling guilty no more because I ain't trying to be
I
walking
know.
around with that.
Right.
I'm gonna be like, y'all feeling guilty today? Dr. Leach said.
You trying to push me away and say you don't need me.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
That'll have you
And-
working your emotions differently.
Yes,
You know?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I feel for folks that are guilt driven because to let go of the guilt is terrifying
Yeah.
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 because of the grief of not being loved. Grief is a really cheap form of self-love.
Oh wow.
Guilt is a really bastardized version of self-love.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Ooh. So what about the parents that lead with guilt?
Guilt tripping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, job security,
True. True. Okay.
making paper.
I can. I respect it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want it, and it's tragic to watch that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to watch. In no way is it like am I demonizing a parent.
Oh,
it's
no.
just tragic.
Yeah.
To watch a parent not be able to say to the child, "I need you,"
Mm.
and I know you need me.
Yeah.
And that we can figure out a way through this.
Gotcha.
That's tragic
Yeah.
That is.
because it could be that simple.
Yeah. Do you feel like shame is also one of those things like guilt and okay.
Yeah, I know the literature can parcel those things out differently. I tend to think of guilt as a phenomenon, and the emotion involved in guilt is shame.
In the same.
There's something inherently wrong with me that I need,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay.
and therefore I am guilty
Makes sense.
for needing.
Which is a very weird concept because it's like, so you were just gonna be on the planet and there, you were just going nothing.
Said another way, oh, now I know what your infancy was like. So you were just on the planet,
Yep.
all alone,
Yep. By
wow.
yourself.
by yourself. Noted. And so they've got to do some repair
Yeah.
Yeah.
at
Absolutely.
such deep levels
Man.
to imagine a world populated by people
That you can use.
That
Not
you-
in a in
that you
not
can
in a
make
bad
use
way.
of.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's like help my words. They was
Yeah.
wrong.
So it's kind of like those people who, I guess, kind of say verbally, not that they mean it, but verbally say, I don't need anybody. I don't need a man.
Yeah, so you're terrified of needing because having needed hurt you.
Yeah.
Not needing anybody is lazy grief, said another way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Sometimes lessons you learn are not actually. Let me make sure I'm saying this correctly. The lessons we learn happened, but it doesn't mean that that is a 100% statistical, evidence-based thing.
Correlation does not
Yeah.
equal causation.
No.
Yeah, and having that self-reflection, skeptical suspicion of the lessons that we've learned, because who was doing the learning of the lesson? The learner probably determined what kind of lesson I was going to learn. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
And see, that's why I asked when I asked about those lessons that you learned from, like, to just say the previous year or whatever.
Yeah.
I want the good, the bad, and the ugly, so I can know what
Yeah.
your perception is of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what they normally give. They only
Sure.
give the good.
No,
A lot
I
of
asked for all.
Yes.
No, I'm saying
Yes, they
give
try
'em,
to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
because they're conceptualizing. Number one, I'm talking to the expert that I'm dealing with, and so there's not a lot of vulnerability in the beginning. Sometimes the whole time, but they're like, I need to put my best foot forward, and your best foot is not what I need. I need all of you.
Yep. And that's which hence why I asked for
Yeah.
all. And
Yes.
so after you give me the okay, so what about the bad? Okay, so what about the ugly?
Because that kind of that. Speaking from my therapist hat, that tears my last nerve up. When you're like, hey, I'm here to help you. I'm here to be part of your support system. And the fear, shame, guilt, whatever is going on, hinders them from being able to give that information to you. So it's like you're in this constant limbo with your client because they're not ready to let go of the facade that they're continuing to carry.
That image they created.
Your patient is in a constant limbo.
Yes.
And you're in it with them.
Yes.
Said another way.
Yes. Because it is true.
Yes. Because it's supposed to be a.
But we talk about that here all the time. We're walking this journey with you. Like this is not us because we have a degree hanging, behind us that we know more about your life than you do.
Yes.
You are the author of your own life.
We're just an assistant to help you get wherever getting is.
We're the editor.
He's thinking.
No, I was just thinking about these patients who can't even imagine a world or a relationship where if I were transparent, there would be a pleasurable experience.
Acceptance.
Whether we call that acceptance, whether we call that confrontation and calling something what it is, or yet staying in relationship, whether that's an emotional, affective resonance, whatever it is, they're suffering in part because they can't imagine reality.
Yeah, we've heard it several times. At least here at our office, we have a lot of first-time therapy individuals, and on top of that, a lot of Black women. And I know probably all of us have heard several times, I couldn't cry in front of you. This is after sessions and sessions and sessions, but I couldn't cry in front of you because I just didn't want to look bad in front of you or weak. So when you talk about that capacity to even understand that I could have a relationship with somebody that is not steeped in hostility, competition, that it really is about support, encouragement with some accountability, that it really takes a long time to get to a point where you believe it.
And that's something I ask. That's something I ask my clients when we're talking about whatever. What is your dream version of this? And because a lot of them don't know. And so I say, okay, so let's go back into movie history. Go find the perfect version of it in a movie that you've watched. I said, and then we can pick that apart and see what works for you and what doesn't work for you. I was like, because I'm not going to give you my version because this works for me. It's not going to work for you.
It's so much going on in the world right now, and we could all use some extra support. At Balanced Beacon, we offer counseling services for individuals, couples, families, and groups. If you're in Texas, give us a call at 214-396-6503 or visit our website at www.balancedbeacon.com for more information. You don't know.
Attachment is so robust.
It is. So we're just scratching the surface.
Oh my gosh.
Like, the question that Dr. Leach asked us before we started recording is, so is there going to be a part 2? Like how
I
long
was
are we
just
going?
thinking about that.
Yeah. And it's like, it's so much information to share that like, it could be a part 5.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
because I was thinking about, a piece of the question that you asked a little bit earlier about when you were saying to do this before this. And I was just thinking about attachment and sexuality because that is a significant chunk of us. Now, there's a small segment where sexuality, they don't really deal with that. But for the most part, that is
some form of attachment.
Yeah. But for the most part, that is a huge piece of, your adulthood and how you relate to someone on a deeper level. And how your attachments in childhood, you know, how they've developed over time can complicate your understanding of yourself as a sexual being. And how to move around in the world.
Yeah.
And that could be with self and with others.
Yeah, because I was going to say you can even break that down more for women understanding femininity and sexuality without being sexual.
Yes.
And even with men being masculine and what that, you know what I mean? It can be broken down so many.
Yeah. It reminds me of, with me being a resident sex therapist, it reminds me of when I get couples in and they are not having a fulfilling sex life, and we find out that the root cause of it is because of what they learned in church. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't change just because you walked up and down an aisle and signed a piece of paper and filed it with the state of Texas. Like, you still have those same thoughts. You still have that same attachment to this belief about what this should look like for you, and that guilt and shame is not leaving just because now the church has said you can do these things.
That's right.
I can't tell you how many couples, especially because we're technically in the Bible Belt, struggle with that. They have horrible sex lives.
Yes.
He's like, where do you even go from there?
Well, what I was thinking about as you guys were both talking about romantic relationships and sex lives, I like to listen to. It really doesn't matter what my patients are going to talk about, but seems like there are certain topics that are particularly evoking. Particularly evoking of the attachment system, needs for safety, security, and exploration. You know, the whole sort of purpose of attachment in infancy is to help the infant become a toddler and go explore, and then come back to the safe base to receive safety and security. It's those tensions of safety, security, and exploration and risk. No different than in adult relationships and marriages. And I can't think of anything better than sex and sexuality that needs both of these things. Safety, security, and risk and adventure. And it's the reverberation of these two dynamics that we call romance that can exist across time. But they, you know, it often fades because we choose one or the other. We don't think we can hold these tensions together. And but I was thinking about listening to patients. I don't really care what they're saying, or I don't care like the topic per se, but I want to watch their minds, and I want to watch as they talk about said topic.
What's their face doing? What's their body doing?
Yes, all of that. Yes.
Like the body keeps a score kind of concept.
Absolutely. Another concept of coherence is their discourse is as they're telling me the story of their sexual history or their current sexual relationship. I don't care what they're going to say. Like I can sort of stop listening to the details with one part of my brain. And all I want to attend to is the story that they're telling coherent? Does it stay organized? Is there enough detail but not too much? Is there enough detail but not too little? Do they start sentences and then sort of stop them in the middle and then begin another sentence? Do they get tangential? Right? Like, I don't care if they're saying it's a good sex life or a bad. I don't care what they're saying on some level. At this level, this is the attachment level. This is how I can get a sense of their attachment style or status. Is when they're experiencing emotional needs, like sex can be. What happens to their mind? Does it get real flat? And unemotional? Does it get all tangly?
Gotcha. Does their face look disgusted?
Like you just said that, and I have a new couple that I'm seeing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the husband is anxious attachment, and the wife is dismissive avoidant. Like I can see their intakes.
Yes.
Because we intake separately.
Yeah,
we don't
yeah.
do couple because
Mm-hmm.
I need to look at y'all individually.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at their dynamic as well as them individually, and I'm
Yes.
like, ooh, it's just so much
Mhm.
just in that, like what
Yeah.
you just broke down.
Yeah, the dismissively attached folks
Mm-hmm.
tend to be real concise.
Happened on the Tuesday.
That is me. Just thinking about the email that I wrote. I'm just be like,
Done.
no fluff. You might get one line of fluff, and then that's it.
That's why we all work so well together.
Well,
I'm a low context communicator.
yeah.
Yes.
And then mine look angry. So I have to have somebody proof it. I might need to put a little bit of fluff in this because that sounds angry.
Y'all know y'all just gonna get a one word. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. No. Bye.
Yeah, that concise description
Yeah.
of their sex life or their romantic life or
Mhm.
their history signifies them taking offline
Mm-hmm.
needs.
Mm-hmm.
It's the child sitting in the corner, not making use of the parent now that
Mhm.
the parent has re-entered.
Yeah.
I don't need. I'm just
Y'all, he rubbing on the wall.
just rubbing on the wall. It's real nice. And
It's like,
textured.
oh, you came back.
Yeah. Or, I mean, it's,
Or,
it's
you came back. Okay.
or sometimes it's just a non-acknowledgement.
Mm-hmm. It's like, I
Of
know
their
you're
return.
there.
But I'm not going there with you.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then, but it's worse than that, right?
Mm.
Like, it's really like, it doesn't occur to me
Mm-hmm.
to know that
Yeah.
you're there or not
Mhm.
there, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
we're imbuing this kind of language. It's
Yeah.
as if they're saying,
Mhm.
I see you,
Yeah.
but I don't need you. But it's
Mhm.
worse. It seems
Mhm.
worse than that. It's
Yeah.
just,
You're not there.
right, it's dead air, right? It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah. I on our podcast, they've heard me say there have been moments in my life where my avoidant attachment comes up and I'm like, you don't exist in my world.
yeah.
I could walk by you and you are not there. I'm more healthy now,
Yes,
y'all, so
yes,
don't
yes.
don't judge me. But it's real. That like
Yeah.
that you not existing.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
really don't exist. People think you're like being funny or like, oh, they just playing games. No, I'm like, I literally cannot see you.
Yes.
You are
Yeah.
literally a blind spot.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't perceive you. I
Yes.
see you
Yes.
because my eyes are taking in data,
Mhm.
Yes.
but the brain says that's not important data to pay attention to.
Exactly.
So
And
we're
see,
just-
that's the part where I when you started, I was like, I'm confused now because I will cut you off and go block you on everything.
Different
like,
method.
I don't
Yes.
have to talk to you no more ever.
Not quite
I'm
dismissive
good.
attachment.
But I think that gets
That
to
can be more entangled and anxious.
No, avoidant. Oh, I was saying avoidant.
Yes, I know.
Oh,
But the kind of conscious awareness
that you're describing.
oh, gotcha.
can be more indicative of the entangled and anxious attachment.
Mm.
Whereas the
Kind of what I was saying, like, it doesn't even occur to me. Like, oh, shoot, I scrolling through my messages. I haven't even messaged this person in like 3 months. Like, what's happened? Oh, shoot. Hey, how are you,
Yeah,
friend?
yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
Yes. Like
Yeah,
that.
so it lacks intentionality.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Charge it to the game, not my heart.
No, charge it to me because I'm
See?
not
That's right,
responding.
that's right.
Whatever. Nope.
Yeah.
Gladly not pay that bill.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Hilarious.
So then what about the anxious type?
Yeah.
You know, so that
Yeah.
I hear your description on kind of what that would look like with the dismissive avoidant type. So for the anxious person kind of describing
How
you know,
they are show up in
yeah.
romantic relationships.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can kind of, to put it in DSM terms,
Okay.
sometimes it looks a little bit like dependent
Oh, okay.
personality disorder,
Mhm.
where someone is consumed with the thoughts of other people,
Gotcha.
consumed with the perceptions and experiences of others,
A bit
Okay.
obsessive.
a bit obsessive,
Okay.
Okay.
obsessive qualities.
Mm-hmm.
And we understand that rooted in the infancy,
Mm-hmm.
that when the infant aligned their internal state with the parent's internal state, that parent became more accessible to them, even if it was a little invasive and too much.
Yes.
However,
So
I got access to you.
Gotcha.
Yes.
So does it look like abandonment issues?
It sure can.
Okay.
Yeah. But when we start looking at the real extremes of abandonment issues, then we start wondering about a disorganized attachment,
Gotcha.
Okay.
where there are more intense bouts of rejection, dismissing and avoidant qualities, and then intense bouts of over-involvement and enmeshment.
Okay.
Disorganized is that it's not dismissive and it's not avoidant. It's mixed.
Yeah.
It tends to have this inconsistent style.
Wow.
Yeah. I feel for those individuals.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a lot. You can't get any
This
baseline. It's like
yeah, that's what I was thinking. The instability,
Yes.
that's created within you. You know, you don't. How do I even walk around in the world?
That's right.
You become a chameleon in the unhealthy,
Yes.
kind of way.
Yeah. And it may have been adaptive in its origins, but it's not adaptive in reality and longitudinally.
Right.
It's more frightening.
Yes, very.
Boy, y'all getting this work today.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go home and tell my husband. So I was right. I have a dismissive attachment. But you know, it's just funny because I don't know specifically what his is, but I would say he has a much more secure attachment style.
Yeah.
Because I can see the difference in how he interacts with his parents versus how I kind of interact with some of mine, because I have multiple parents, you know, just other than the two.
That's right.
And I can see, you know, how, like, wow, that really is, there is a serious difference in what you experience as a child, in how you communicate, you know, what boundaries you set, don't set.
Yes.
And
then as adults, what you expect from other adults, what you accurately anticipate.
Yeah.
How collaborative you are in your problem solving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How effective you are at knowing that you need something when you need something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to see in real time.
Sure, with a degree of awareness.
Yes.
of it happening.
It is.
Which is a little bit more of your security of attachment that's just been layered with some really difficult childhood experiences.
Gotcha.
Where being dismissive was probably rather adaptive.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily the core of your neurology.
I would agree with that.
Say that.
I would agree with that.
Say that. Because in the book, Attached, you know, they kind of talk about that, how, you know, you may fall into a specific category, if you want to call it a category, but it's
a pattern and
but it's a little bit more nuanced. It's not this only secure.
That's right.
I'm only secure all the time.
That's right.
There's other things that pop up. Like, I know I have abandonment issues because my father was not in my life consistency. Exactly. I don't have to explain it. There you go. But I'll be giving information.
No, that's fine. I mean, it's interesting, but it's irrelevant on some level too.
Yes, exactly. And so it's like, okay, this is why I am going on this particular journey, this path. So let me realize how I need to handle myself in order to feel secure and to be secure.
Yeah.
So.
So this makes me wonder about when two different styles come together. So you have a, let's say, anxious type and an avoidant type come together.
Typical.
You know.
It's not good.
Yeah. Or a disorganized type and a dismissive type. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like.
I mean, it's all suboptimal.
Of course.
Right?
Of
like
course.
It's just, and it's also honest. Right? Like we just.
It is what it is.
We got here by honest means.
Yeah.
And the only way to get out of here is through honest means.
Yeah.
and you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think the important part of that is, are y'all willing to work on it together?
And
Are you willing to
also,
work on it, period?
willingness is tricky,
Yes. Yes.
right? Because you don't know that you could have willing,
Do you have the capacity?
right?
Yes.
We have to also assess the capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you could want something all day long. I can't give it to you, though.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I
right.
may literally not be able to give it to you.
That's right.
Yeah.
And dismissively attached folks are not really willing until they're willing.
Yes.
And then you've turned that corner.
It's like the light bulb
That's
just
right.
came on.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And so it's a kind of difficult question to ask,
Uh-huh.
right? Like you can't ask of someone of something that they can't do,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
but I'll take the willingness enough just for you to come, right? Like, for those dismissively attached folks, if
Yeah.
you're coming, I'll take that as your testimony that you were willing to come.
Yes.
And that is probably the capacity by which you can determine you were willing.
If this don't sound like my introverted butt, it's like I got too many avoidant things going on at the same time.
Wow.
Well, you know, that's why when you work with couples, when they have issues, you have to we ask them, okay, so what are your expectations? What are your expectations? And just because you have these expectations, it doesn't mean that this person is willing to provide you what you need from them to meet your expectations. Because like you said, they may not, even if they are willing, they may not have the capacity to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a tension of I am asking you what are your expectations?
Expectations.
Yeah, I'm asking you what are your expectations for this. I have to both be attuned, respectful. I've got to be responsive to that individual's what their expectations are, while all at the same time having a robust enough skepticism to whether to understand or know, can this person accurately, effectively identify meaningful, necessary expectations.
Yep.
That's complicated.
Ooh,
yes.
Very much so.
I can take you where you're at, but it doesn't mean you actually answered my question,
Yep.
right? Or you may not know what you need.
Yeah.
And so I might have to do some imagining for you, and imagining several things so that it's not me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so that it's not exactly me. However, there is a me that has achieved a degree of security of attachment.
Yeah.
Therefore, I can know
Yes. Yes.
on your behalf,
Yeah.
Yes.
because that's what a parent is supposed to be doing, is
Yeah.
to know on behalf of the infant what you need, based on some of the data that you've given me.
Yeah.
But that's complicated, right? Like if
It
you ever
is.
had an infant, like what bizarre that there
Tell
are
me.
like 17 different cries.
Yes.
All I hear is crying, and I wanted to shut up.
Yeah.
But now that I'm a parent 3 times over, now I get, there are these different cries. Oh, and that parent doesn't get it. That's not the
Yeah.
kind of cry they need. And that's not what they mean by that cry.
No,
Like,
they were just hungry.
yeah, that's right.
Or
Like,
attention.
or I'm just annoyed and leave me the hell alone.
It's hot
You're in my
here.
face.
That's right.
Stop talking to me, Mom.
But that's difficult to know immediately.
Yes.
No different in the clinical moment. So what are your expectations for this therapy? I may not be able to determine in that moment, in that first session,
Yeah.
accurately what exactly is this cry. I mean, this expectation that you have.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
So it's going to take some time for the therapist to vet that out a bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
And them to vet that out of you.
Sure, that's right.
You know, because that makes me think about what I was saying earlier about some of our clients saying that I couldn't cry in front of you
Yes.
because I didn't want to look weak, or so they're also vetting all of that out of you.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Are you going to be consistent? Are you going to be non-judgmental, as
Yes.
people describe therapy to be?
Are you
gonna
capable?
Are you going to be patient? Are you going to, all of these things?
Yeah.
Because holding space is not easy.
No.
No. And the money helps.
Yes.
Yes, it
I
does.
do, right? Like I'm not here for my own needs.
Yeah.
After you just
Yeah.
paid me.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I'm here to work.
Yeah.
But it might be, there is some thought that it might be, in terms of attachment repair, at this foundational level, and what it takes to change this foundation
Yeah.
that is beneath levels of consciousness, beneath conscious awareness, beneath narrative explicit memory, because it's in these first years of life,
Yeah.
that it might be not reasonable to expect the therapist to be repairing the attachment repair, because the therapist is human and is not perfect. And not that the infant needed a perfect parent. They just needed a good enough parent, which meant that parent was going to get it right about 30% of the time.
Yeah.
But now that they are an adult and they didn't have a good enough parent, and therefore they have this insecure attachment, what they're needing is a perfect
Gotcha.
reparenting experience of which we cannot be,
Right.
No.
because we're not perfect.
No.
Right.
I may be delicious,
Yes.
but I can't sustain that,
Yeah.
No.
and no shame in that,
No.
right?
Right.
And so, hence the need to work in the playground of the patient's imagination, to remember the youngest inner child self, and to give that inner child a perfect parental experience that the individual patient cannot conjure up themselves, because insert what we already said.
Yeah.
You already had a not good enough parental experience, which means you can't imagine yourself out of this.
Yeah. Definitely.
That's what secure folk can do, right? Secure people have the capacity to imagine themselves out of this context, situation,
Yeah.
difficulty.
Okay. Agreed.
Which is not to say, though, that the repeated experiences of a present, benevolent, attentive therapist doesn't help or doesn't heal.
Definitely.
It just may take years and years and years of that.
Yeah. Because it's not real yet.
Because it's not really. That's right.
I see you,
It's
but
an
I don't see
it's
you.
approximation, and it's once a week, and
Yeah. I just had somebody ask me that maybe a couple weeks ago. How long does this take? And I said, well, I've seen some people for 4 years now, and we're just now getting to a place where they can come once a month.
yeah,
Because of all the things that they've gone through. So you may be here a year, you may be here 5 years, but that doesn't mean you're going to be coming every week for 5 years. Now,
thou mayest.
yes, but this is a journey, and this is you will experience different things from today through the end of your time that may require you to be here in some capacity for the lifetime.
Yeah.
So not getting stuck on the idea of the end.
Yeah.
I think it's important for our clients to realize it takes as long as your healing necessitates it, and don't limit yourself like that.
Yeah.
Because my ultimate goal is that one day we get to a place where people use therapy as a preventative measure. We're getting closer to that, but we still got a long way to go. Because most of us go to therapy in crisis. Like, I don't know who's solving crisis in one session, but it ain't me.
No.
Right.
It's
very rich if I could. Shoot.
Right. Well, and I think for a lot of our clients, what they have to realize is that it takes a lot of our clients that come in because they're in crisis, it takes them a while to get to the point where they can imagine something different. Because I've had several clients tell me, well, I can't imagine anything different other than what's going on in my life now. And so you have to get past that.
Yeah, your imaginator broke.
Yeah.
You gotta fix your imaginator.
There was no Willy Wonka in their
That's
neighborhood.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, something you were saying. Shoot, and it's gone. Oh yeah. How long is this gonna take? Well, what's the this?
Yeah.
Right, like.
Yeah.
Come on, Socratic questioning.
I would like to know what this we're talking about. And I suspect you have many thises that you don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the this that you're coming in for is probably not the this that you really need to work on.
Yeah.
No.
The that.
It's the that, right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
let's work with the this
Yeah.
long
So
enough
we can get to that.
so we can get to the that. Yeah.
Agreed.
And sometimes that means you're not going to process a trauma with a patient.
Exactly.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
We're
sure.
actually not going to talk about that.
Sometimes it's
I don't
really
need
not
the
even
details.
necessary.
Right.
Well,
You know?
sometimes it's counterproductive
Productive.
or
Oh, yeah.
counterproductive. Yes, in fact, it's I'm not really willing to participate in hurting you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're not going to tell me that story because when you tell me that story, you're in a state of mind as if it's really happening right now,
Yeah.
and it's not.
You
But your body is,
Yeah.
and I'm not here for that, right?
No.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not a perpetrator.
Yeah, that is true.
And so I know this is the this that you wanted to talk about, but that's not helpful to you.
Right.
We got to do something over here
Yeah.
first
Oh, yeah.
before you have the capacity to then tell me those stories.
Right.
It's levels to this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Man.
Jesus.
Interns. No, go ahead. I'm just saying we was together. I was just saying interns. That was all I was saying.
Oh, I was gonna say we can go. We can keep going. We can keep going, and we can keep going because I'm telling you, in which I wish we could take advantage of Dr. Leach because he lived so far away that it'd be hard to get him back over here. But and so I wish we could take advantage of him, and get everything he got in his brain. But
We'll make sure that
I'm
he
happy to
comes
come
back.
Yes.
We'll make
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
Because this is a lot of meat and potatoes. Look, we might just
You be a regular guest.
yes, yes.
I'd be honored.
because I'm telling you, everybody's only been one other person. The two people, I think they gonna love him. You know what I mean? They Trish, they love. Is she coming back?
Yeah.
They gonna be like, when is Dr. Leach coming back?
Oh, yeah.
We'll find something for him to do.
Cause y'all can't have our Dr. Leach because y'all gonna love him just like we do, but y'all cannot have him. We are possessive over Dr. Leach.
And I think they are also enjoying having a man on the podcast.
Yeah.
You are our first male guest.
Wow.
Mhm.
That is true.
Well, that's even more special.
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
I know you're joking, Dr. Jones, about being possessive.
Yeah.
Yet, there's something to be said that this is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? That something about a kind of relationship
Yeah.
that we were able to form results in the continued relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that you would have the quote unquote audacity right, like, to ask
It's
me
the audacity for me.
to travel this far. And I'm like, well, that ain't that far.
Yeah.
It's the love.
Right? Like, I'm not coming here out of guilt.
That's
Yes,
true.
please don't.
And the security of knowing how to get a hold of me.
Yes. Yeah.
Because he knows
I do know.
we will do multiple ways.
Yes.
Yeah. Where you at, Dr. Leach? Where you at? Like, my mom was even like, oh, why didn't you tell me sooner? I could have made him some of those cookies and cakes that he had last. I said, Mom, everybody don't need a platter of
right.
cakes and cookies
That's
every
right.
time they see you again. So she was trying to get you.
Next time.
So shout out to Wall to
That's
Wall sweets and treats,
But no, truly, I mean, it's sort of an embodiment,
Yeah.
right, of what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's unfair for folk that don't make more use,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Like, that's just tragic.
Yeah.
It is. It definitely makes me think about, and I'm not going to ask you specifically about yours, but like your attachment style and just how your energy presents itself, which how it is magnetic to certain types of individuals.
Sure.
Like the two of us, and how like, no, this is somebody that we want to have continue be a part of our life, even though the structure that brought us together exists no more.
That's right. That's right.
For any of us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is so ironic.
Yeah.
And that the hierarchy that existed previously
Yeah.
in that relationship does not exist anymore.
Yeah.
And being able to have the capacity to change along with the change in that hierarchy.
Yeah.
And because you know what the thing about it is, I remember very close to once Dr. Leach hooded us. He immediately said, "You can call me Michael now." I was like, "No, I can't.
I'm not ready.
I'm not ready for that."
I do it every now and then just to
To try it on.
It doesn't feel right. I can't. I don't know if I've ever. Well, just now.
I throw it out every now and then.
Sang Mufasa.
But it's so beautiful though. Like I feel like as an adult, you don't really get a lot of opportunities to build relationships like that. You know, when you're in a doctoral program, you're like, I don't know what's going on right now. So the fact that you can, I'm going to use a word that our attachment person might not like, cleave to the person who is like really feeding your spirit in that moment. Because it is a very lonely process and you are second guessing a lot of things, putting yourself through this torture. And so having someone like a Dr. Leach, or for me it was, you know, Dr. Robinson, Dr. Sue Robinson, like having these type of people, it's like, wow, like, okay, I can do this. Like, they believe in me. I believed in myself, but then I forgot, and then they reminded me. It's that parenting component, but not in a parenting aspect.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. Just in adulthood.
Yeah.
It's what it looks like in adulthood. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you were diagnosing our traditional academia as insecurely attached. Right?
I wasn't, but I can see where you're going.
Right? Because I don't know that if it is difficult to form these relationships in adulthood as much as my oh my do we participate in structures and systems that are unable to cultivate true community. Right? Like, because this has been easy. You see what I'm saying? Like, I know it is difficult, but I know it is not difficult.
Right.
You can't see what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
Like, it is in the general world. I get that. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I can look to particular relationships and say it is not difficult
Definitely.
to develop, maintain long-term relationships across time
Right.
that evolve and change because the nature of the relationship needs to evolve and change.
Right.
Yes. That's one of the first things that I remember talking to Dr. Strickland about when they decided to open this practice. Because I personally, because I know where I come from, I need an element of family wherever I'm at. I need connectedness because I'll be out here wandering by myself. Don't know nothing is going on. So I need an element of that. And if I can't be my authentic, real, quirky, goofy self, it's not going to work out well. And plus, I done spent too much money on this education to be not having the type of job I want.
Got that right.
Agreed.
Man, well, I don't know, guys. Y'all got enough?
Yeah. Do you have any additional or final thoughts, Dr. Leach or Michael?
See how she still said it low.
Exactly.
I think I'm going to say it.
That may be the military brat in me. It feels slightly disrespectful.
Right. Yeah. It's like we need to be suspicious of our own minds. Right? Well, I don't know. I don't really think so. There is There is so much joy in the game hide and seek.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So fun getting in the closet, behind the curtain, under the pillows.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, I'm gonna make it real hard for them to find me.
Mm-hmm.
And there is nothing more tragic than not being found.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I am grateful that the three of you are in this sacred profession of playing hide and seek with your patients.
Don't have me on here crying. Jeez.
My eyes not getting ready to be sweating, Dr. Leach.
So keep finding them because they're hiding.
We're all a bunch of babies.
Well, yeah.
Literally.
It's beautiful work
Thank you.
and tough work. And not for the faint.
No.
And should never be done alone
No.
because you can't do it alone.
No.
Make sure you get paid
Yeah, to speak to that,
because it's valuable
Yes.
all of
and
that,
necessary.
Yes.
all of that. I think that has been one of the most helpful things about having the people, like the legacy people that are at the office.
Mhm.
I love all of our new individuals, and I would never say anything negative, but you know that the first set of people that came,
Yes, I know.
you know, all of us together, and that fight to be in this, do this, make it successful, and just the way we had to lean on one another,
Yes.
you know, as a somewhat dismissive individual.
It's a stretch.
It is a learning experience
Yes.
that you can,
Growing experience.
yes, growing experience.
Repairing experience.
Yes, that you can allow people in, and that you can allow yourself to be in
Yes.
with someone else.
Yeah. That's gorgeous.
Yeah, so they know I love them.
Yeah.
My sister's from another mister.
And I would say from the avoidant person that I had to learn how to stay and sit still, even when it felt uncomfortable, even when I don't want to say I was hurt. Well, I guess so. When I was hurt,
Yes.
or,
It's
whatever.
an ordinary thing.
Exactly. But I had to learn how to stay and not be like, okay, yeah, well, we can close. I'm done. I'm going to go off by myself now.
Yeah.
So
Look at you getting us in our feels. Like a true therapist.
I know.
The interns is like, y'all are always in your fields. What are you talking about?
That's funny.
Yeah.
I can't help it. I'm a feeler.
I'm such a thinker. I'm a thinker than a feeler.
Yeah, me too.
Because I'm like, okay. Let me lead with what's the logic.
Yes, yeah.
And then once the logic has taken, then it's like,
Well, you ain't gonna never see that part
yeah,
come out of me.
no. Man, that's very observant of you.
He's like, I've already psychoanalyzed all of y'all a long time ago.
Okay.
You forgot you were my students, right? What'd you say, Dr. Leach?
I'm gonna send you the bill.
Okay. I'm gonna send you. I'm gonna pay you with mom's food.
Yes, gladly.
Oh, man. Well, we definitely thank you.
Yes.
This has
Thank
been
you.
a wonderful, beautiful experience, as always. You know,
Yeah.
we always enjoy, talking with you and spending time. But it's so good to be able to have an experience like this in a different kind of way versus just being a student,
Yeah,
being
sure.
able to interact with you as a colleague,
Yes.
and understand and pick your
Yes.
brain in a different kind of way.
Yes.
Yeah.
It definitely feels different. But just like we were saying a little bit earlier about that transition of relationship, because that hierarchy of professor student is not present. But you're still doing it without it feeling like that's what you're doing. Yeah. So I appreciate that.
Most
Definitely.
Okay. So, as we always end off with a quote, Dr. Jones-Hines.
Okay. And this quote is by Donald Woods Winnicott. The fact that grief takes so long to resolve is not a sign of inadequacy, but betokens depth of the soul.
Must be this volume control.
So, okay, interns, process your notes. Be sure to catch us next session and find us on all major platforms at the RePsychled Podcast.
If you're a new intern, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share.
Thanks for listening. And remember, we are shifting and reshaping our psyche through healing conversations and connections, one discussion at a time.